Welcome back, dear friends, at Lit ECT YouTube channel, the one stop destination for English learning resources. Friends, we are starting a new series. We will talk about some important theorists and their major concepts that belong to the category of Indian literary theory, or in other words, we can say classical Sanskrit poetics. In today's video, we will discuss about Dandi and his famous concept of Sarga Bandha, which we also know as his definition and his concept of epic. So let's start this video with a brief introduction to the writer, to the poet, or we can say the theorist Dandi. He is a classical Sanskrit author of the world famous prose romance. Yes, dear friends, he is not just a theorist, he is also a writer. And his world famous work is Dashkumar Charita. He is also known for introducing certain concept in Sanskrit literary theory. In fact, he is one of the oldest exponents of Sanskrit poetics. संस्कृत पॉइटिक्स का जो हिस्ट्री है, इतिहास है, इट इज एज ओल्ड एज ह्यूमन सिविलाइजेशन. और बहुत सारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स दे आर क्वाइट इनोवेटिव एंड क्वाइट अहेड ऑफ देयर टाइम. We will be surprised to know that very intricate details regarding with all type of forms of literature, languages, alankars, these have been discussed and given by some of the ancient writers. तो दंडी भी उन्हीं में से एक थे. He was also a pioneer. He introduced certain new concepts. Like many other of his category, there is no definite information, no authentic information regarding Dandi. In fact, there are claims that there is no one Dandi, the writer. There are in fact three different persons named Dandi. One is the critic, who is the guru also, who is also known as Acharya Dandi. Then we have Dandi, the author of Dashkumar Charit, which is a prose romance. So basically a prose writer. And then we also have references to Dandi the poet. ये reason कि why they are three different persons is because of different writing styles. इन जो क्रिटिक का हमारे पास जो वर्क है, जो दश कुमार चरित है, और साथ ही में जो पोइट्री है, उन तीनों में जो राइटिंग स्टाइल है, इट इज क्वाइट डिससिमिलर टू ईच अदर. एक दूसरे से काफी अलग है. दैट इज व्हाई इट इज some critics, some scholars think that there is no one Dandi, there are in fact three Dandis. वैसे ऐसा माना जाता है 7th to 8th सेंचुरी में बिलोंग करते थे. शायद गुजरात, महाराष्ट्र या मे बी सदर्न इंडिया से दंडी आते हैं. एंड ही वॉज क्वाइट पॉपुलर ड्यूरिंग हिज टाइम आल्सो. नाउ here we will focus only on Dandi as a critic, as a theorist of Sanskrit poetry, poetics. And इस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से उनका जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट कंट्रीब्यूशन है, ही इज वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट थियरिस्ट who talked about the role of language in poetry. In fact, figure of speech या अलंकार के ऊपर दंडी का जो वर्क है, it is we can say a milestone work. जितनी डिटेल के साथ उन्होंने डिफरेंट फिगर्स ऑफ स्पीच या पोइटिक डिवाइसेस, अलंकार का क्लासिफिकेशन किया है, प्रेजेंटेशन किया है, इट इज रेयर टू फाइंड इन एनी वन पर्टिकुलर बुक. और ये सारी चीजें जो उन्होंने डिस्कस करी है, वो है उनकी ट्रिटाइज, उनकी बुक काव्यादर्श. काव्यादर्श, which we can translate into the mirror of poetry. It is a highly influential work of Sanskrit poetics. इसके साथ ही दंडी, देखिए इंडियन क्लासिकल जो पोइटिक्स है, इट हैज डिफरेंट स्कूल्स. स्कूल्स का मतलब हम पंथ समझ सकते हैं, अ पर्टिकुलर methodology is followed by a particular section. So there is रीति school, there is अलंकार school, अलग अलग इन schools के अंदर there is also दंडी ने भी अपना एक contribution दिया है, though he has also worked on alankars, but he has also talked about riti. So Marga-riti ये इनका एक original contribution है, और Marga-riti में though there are so many varieties, but he has talked about two particular varieties of language, God एंड वैदर्भ. इन दोनों रीति या इन दोनों शैली के ऊपर दंडी ने डिटेल में डिस्क्रिप्शन दिया है. अगर हम बात करें व्हाट इज एक्चुअली रीति, रीति बेसिकली इज द वे हाउ language is organized and how words are selected. So in western canon we call it poetic diction. So किस तरह से phrases वर्ड्स को पिक किया जाता है और यूज किया जाता है, दैट इज कॉल्ड रीति इन क्लासिकल संस्कृत पोएटिक्स. एंड इफ वी टॉक अबाउट Dandi's contribution to it, Marga-riti, it takes into account not only the predominant language Sanskrit, but also all the varieties and dialects that were popular, that were in currency, that were in use during Dandi's time. So this is his contribution, that he does not talk about only about the one language, the classical language, but he takes into consideration all the languages and works written in those languages. चलिए बात करते हैं हम काव्यदर्श के बारे में. देखिए काव्यदर्श इज अ शॉर्ट ट्रेटाइज, रिलेटिवली शॉर्ट, बट इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू डिसाइफर. रीजन ये है कि जो फ्रेजेस हैं दे आर वेरी कंडेंस, बड़े बड़े पदों को उन्होंने यूज किया है. इट इज डिवाइडेड इनटू 3 चैप्टर्स. इट डिस्कस अबाउट द डेफिनेशन एंड क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ Kavya, dosh, or we can say demerits and gun merits, and a large section of the book is dedicated to the discussion of alankars or figures of speech of Kavya. देखिए काव्य में वो अलंकार को बहुत ब्यूटीफुल वे के अंदर एक एप्ट डेफिनेशन देते हैं. काव्य शोभा कारान धर्मान अलंकारन प्रचक्षते, विच मीन्स एवरीथिंग व्हाट मेक्स द शोभा और द ब्यूटी, जो भी काव्य की ब्यूटी को एनहांस करता है, उसकी शोभा को बढ़ाता है, दैट कैन बी कंसिडर्ड एज an alankar. Now look at the broad scope of this definition. The everything that contribute to the beauty, to the aesthetic of literary work can be considered a figure of speech, can be considered as a poetic device. Now for easy understanding, there are critics who have divided the chapter of Kāvyādarśa in following way. Shlok 1 to 9 is benediction and introductory remarks. Shlok 103 to 5 from book first, and book third 187 purpose and sources of poetry, definition and classification of Kavya 10 to 39. Then there is poetic diction, that is Marg, and there again in book 1. These are in other shloks. Defect in book 3rd. Poetic figures right from first to the last one, 368. The whole second book is covered about poetic figures or alankars, and last 2 shlok is about the concluding remarks. So this is the general workflow of this particular book, is this particular treatise. Another very important point to consider about Kāvyadarsha or Dandi's concept of study of poetry is his concept of Kavya Sharira. Now Kavya Sharir we can easily understand is a metaphor which stands for the body of poetry. In Sanskrit poetics, words, phrases, alankars, these are considered as the body of poetry, while ras and bhav, they are considered as the atma or the soul of poetry. So it is quite clear that while there are writers, there are scholars like Bharat Muni who have focused main on the bhav and rasa, Dandin has focused more on diction and poetic devices and put rasa on the secondary place, which are considered the essence and the soul of poetry. Now, जैसा हमने देखा कि he not only defines काव्य, he also classifies. So, Dandin काव्य को classify करते हैं different factors पर, for on the basis of form, स्वरूप के आधार पर there are three forms, prose and verse, and then there is mishra or the mixture of the two. There is a very detailed classification. किसी और critic को पढ़ते हुए हम generally या किसी general class में इसको हम देखेंगे. Then he talks about sources of poetry. One is obviously the very natural source, poetic imagination, which he calls pratibha. Second one is shruti or the culture, the sanskriti, the shruti, and the third one is constant practice, amand abhiyog, without break, continually practicing your art. Now, after talking all about all these general remarks, let's come to the main focus of our chapter today, that is Mahakavya. He is actually one of the earliest writer to deal with the nature and theory of the epic poetry. Dear friends, epic poetry, Mahakavya, which Dandin calls Sarga Bandha, is nothing new to either Indian civilization or the Western literary civilization, literary history. It is always considered to be the greatest achievement of a writer of the highest caliber. Only he or she can compose a Mahakavya. So even in the Western canon and even in the Indian one and all the other civilizations, critics have focused on some essential features which must be there in a work if it is to be called a Mahakavya. So Dandin is actually the first one who has given these characteristics of Mahakavya according to the Indic tradition. So according to Dandin, the purpose of poetry is to give delight, and Mahakavya is a composition, is a work which gives delight to the whole world. It has a great compass, and obviously the audience जो relish करती है महाकाव्य को, it is worldwide. Now Dandin जो है वो लैंग्वेज, ये भी एक कंट्रीब्यूशन है Dandin का. उनसे पहले एक्चुअली में there were only three types of languages popular during his time: Sanskrit, then there were Prakrit language and Apabhransh. But Dandin also introduced another language, that is Mishra language, in which people use bits of Sanskrit and Prakrit and also Apabhransh. But if we talk about Sanskrit, Shastra and or grammar, they consider that any other language other than Sanskrit is Apabhransh. And Mahakavya, because it is of the highest order of composition, सबसे ऊंचा इसका level होता है, it should be written in Sanskrit language. So that is why among all the forms of the verse, the most significant one, the most important one, the most prestigious one is Mahakavya, which he calls Sarga Bandha. Now, what is meaning of this Sarga Bandha? Sarga Bandha is the epic poetry which has different chapters. That is Sarga. Sarga is a chapter and it is full of ras and bhav. Now, Dandin discusses the characteristics of Mahakavya, Shlok 15 to 23. Now you can see only 8 or 9 verses. केवल इतने से श्लोक के अंदर he has given, look at the condensed level, or we can say the epigrammatic nature of his work. बहुत छोटे श्लोक हैं, but they involve all the important characteristics which are to be found in a Mahakavya. So he says, Sarga Bandho Mahakavyam Chate Tasya Lakshanam Ashir Namaskriya Vastu Nirdesho Vapi Tanmukham. Let's discuss it, that Sarga Bandho Mahakavyam Chate. If it is Sarga Bandh, if it is an epic, it should either a blessing, Ashish or Mangala, or a dedication, Namaskriya, और एन इंडिकेशन ऑफ द सब्जेक्ट मैटर, वस्तु निर्देशो. सो एक जो एपिक या महाकाव्य होता है, इट शुड स्टार्ट जस्ट लाइक द वेस्टर्न एपिक्स, जिसके अंदर फीचर्स में माना जाता है कि इट शुड बिगिन विद अ डेडिकेशन, विद एन इन्वोकेशन. सिमिलरली दंडी आल्सो सेज दैट इट शुड हैव, it should offer a blessing, it should invoke a goddess or a god, and it also must inform about the subject matter of the epic Mahakavya. Then it should also indicate the source of the story. Now there can be 2 or 3 sources of the story, whether it is taken from traditional narrative stories, that is itivrata, or it is from history, itihas, true event, and the length of chapter may not be much, they may not be very lengthy, but the way of narrating the story is quite excellent. Now if the subject matter is taken from history, or it is some imaginary, it should be noble and sublime. Another very common factor among all the epics, that epic, the topic, the subject matter should be sublime. भव्यता उसके अंदर होनी चाहिए. Stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata and Puran, they should be taken as the subject. And some good examples of Sarga Bandha that are composed from this particular POV point of view are Raghuvansh, Shishupal Vad and Kumar Sambhav. All these Sarga Bandha derive their basic stories from these epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata and Puran. Then the main purpose of a Sarga Bandha is that it should persist, it should exemplify the fruit of the 4 objects of life that are prescribed in Indian Vangmay: Artha, Dharma, Kam and Moksha. Chatur Farg Falayetam. Matlab the audience, the readers should get the lessons, should get the feelings, experience of Chatur Varg, जो हमारे Indian philosophical system के अंदर गोल्स ऑफ लाइफ माने गए हैं, अर्थ, धर्म, काम और मोक्ष, उन सब के बारे में देयर मस्ट बी सम लेसन, सम एक्सपीरियंस टू बी लर्न फ्रॉम. Now talking about the protagonist, the hero, Nayak, he should obviously be very grand, skillful, virtuous person, and the supremacy of hero, he should be of supreme height. It should be established by describing his victory over his opponents. And then the hero is taken again from great epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, जिनके जो heroes हैं, जिनके जो protagonist हैं, they are undisputable अपने वर्च्यूज के अंदर. Yes, exceptions are possible, and a Mahakavya can be composed by focusing on the deeds of one great historical person also. A very good example is Buddha Charit by Ashwa Ghosh, जिसके जो protagonist है वो बुद्ध है, who is not taken from epic like Ramayana or Mahabharata or some Puran. Now the hero can have different type of qualities, and traditionally Indian aesthetics के अंदर, Indian poetics के अंदर, dramaturgy के अंदर, nayaks are usually classified into 4 kinds, that is Chaturoddat Nayakam. Now the first one is Dhiroddat, the best type of protagonist. The example is Sri Ram, who is brave, noble-minded, and all the great qualities. He is an epitome of what is known as Maryada Purushottam. Then Dhirodhat, a person who is noble-minded, but he is very passionate and aggressive. Example is Bhim from Mahabharata. Then Dhir Lalit, a person who is interested in fine arts, very happy and carefree and not very much perturbed by the world and its affairs, like Udayan. And then there is Dhir Shant, who is brave but remains calm in the face of calamities, like Charudat from Mrachkatikam. So these are some examples of different type of Nayaks that can become the protagonist or the hero of a Sarga Bandha. Then, if there is a great hero, and he should also overcome a great rival or antagonist, or what we call Pratinayak. He should also have great qualities. Obviously, he should have some flaws, some reasons that he becomes the Pratinayak. And there may be two ways, according to Dandin, to introduce a Pratinayak. First, describing in detail the hero, and then describing the antagonist, just like in Ramayana, when we first have all right from the birth and education and the marriage and exile of Lord Ram, and then we have the Pratinayak Ravan. But it can also, the order can also be reversed. First we have the introduction of the antagonist, and then we focus on the qualities of the hero, for example in Kirat Arjuniya. And Dandi prefers the second method because it highlights the qualities of the hero. After talking about the protagonist and his qualities, Dandi goes on to include that a Mahakavya should have detailed description, long description of cities, oceans, mountains, various seasons like that of spring, the sunrise, the moonrise, sunset, moonset, and sporting of lovers in the garden or in water, enjoying drinks and love making. What he calls Udyan Salil Krida Madhupan Ratot Sarve. So these all activities must have a detailed descriptions in a Mahakavya. It should not only describe the union of lovers, how they are enjoyed upon their meeting, but it also have their while they are separate from each other due to particular circumstances, or Vipralamba Shringar. Because of this introduction of this Shringar, a Mahakavya achieve its perfect balance between bliss and loss, and we are able to go through a range of emotions. So the focus of Dandi is that it should not only about one particular kind of experience, it should assimilate, it should include all kind of feelings. Then there should be detailed descriptions of the meetings, consultation with ministers, journey of the messengers, of the wars and the victories of the heroes. You can see that the pattern is quite similar, bilkul ek jaisa pattern which we find in the Western epics and the Indian epics. Each Sarg and canto, what Sarg or in Western context we can call it canto, should be fulfilled with different ras and bhav. There should be alankars, figures of speech, but not in great detail, but the flow of ras and bhav must be continuous. As he says, alankratam sankshitam rasabhav nirantaram. Means the introduction of figures of speech should be brief, but it should be condensed, and rasbhav should be constantly there in an epic. It should be of sizable length. Now, what should be the exact size? Now, Dandi uses term Anativistirna, which means length of the Mahakavya depends upon the potential of the poet. If the poet has this potential, agar usme yogyata pratibha itni hai that he can make a very long composition, that is so, but it should be constant in its quality. Then cantos should not be similar to each other. They should deal with different incident. The term Dandi uses is bhinna vritanteh. Now, it can be interpreted in two ways. First is bhinna vritant, different episode in different cantos. And each canto must end with shlok that have different meter from the rest of the shlok of that particular sarg. इसका कहने का मतलब ये है कि if canto has a particular meter, the concluding verse should have different meter. So, for example, Raghuvansh, in which the whole second canto, second sarg is, the whole sarg is written in Upjati Chand, but the last slok is written in Malini Chand. So, this can be also Vrat Ante, means the end of the sarg. Bhinna Vrat Ante, different ending of the sarg. It can also be interpreted in this manner. Now, talking about the construction, the structure of the Mahakavya, it should be based on logical sequence. There, like a particular epic, there must be different junctures, different changes, or what he calls samdhis. It should begin on a happy note, which is known as Mukh or Adimangla, and then there should be some contrasting second samdhi, Pratimukha, then third samdhi, Garbh. It should contain the core of the plot, the main story of the plot. Fourth samdhi, Vimarsh, should present the crisis in the life of the Nayak. There should be some problem he has to face. The crisis is solved in the fifth samdhi, Nirvahan, and the Kavya is concluded on an auspicious happy note again, Anta Mangala. So this should be the proper structure of a Mahakavya, whatever its length is. If a Kavya has all these qualities, it becomes pleasing to the whole world and well ornamented. It will become so popular that it will achieve everlasting glory. Kavyam kalpantar sthai jayate sadalankrati. So it will get permanent glory. It will become forever famous. Dandi is very, we can say, he is very flexible, that there may be cases that all these features are not present in a Mahakavya, but if the readers and listener get pleasure from it, some of the dosh, some of the faults can be ignored. So after this discussion, we can easily understand that how Dandi was one of the pioneer theorists in Indian poetics, critically acclaimed all over the world for his contribution to literary theory, aesthetics, linguistics, and philosophy. Here we should include quote of Rajshekhar, who is again a very important theorist of Sanskrit poetics. He said that there are three fires, three gods, three Ved, three qualities, and three works by Dandi. So everything that is great in this triple word comes in threes. So this is praise of Dandi. And then another anonymous note said that upon the birth of Valmiki, the word poet was coined. So it means Valmiki was the first poet, and for a time he was the only poet in the world. With Vyas, it was first used in duel. Then came Vyas, and there were only two poets, and the poets in the plural first appeared along with Dandi. So Dandi, when he came to the scene, it became the poetry, the world of the poets become populated with three poets. Uske andar teen poets aa gaye. So friends, that's all in this lesson, today's lesson. I hope you understand the concept of Sarga Bandha, what are its main features, and please pay attention to this, enjoy this learning. Keep watching, keep supporting. Thank you, friends.